You joined us for Rain of Blood, and together we made it rain bigger and better than we could have ever imagined. So now, join us for a second blazing inferno of knowledge and exploration. You're listening to Rain of Fire, the scorching sequel event to Rain of Blood, where we're going to delve into the world of fireplay education and safety as we prepare for the upcoming Rain of Fire event. Join your host, Miss Kitten, Radically Dark, and Ember Solaris as we ignite your curiosity and stoke the flames of passion with discussions, interviews, and authentic insights from around the globe. Together, we're three flames united in one mission to make quality kink education more accessible and open pathways to conversation and connection about edgeplay topics around the world. But before we dive into these sizzling topics, a content warning. Rain of Fire discusses mature themes, explicit content, and practices related to BDSM and fireplay. So listener discretion is advised, and this is an adult-only podcast. Other topics may include mental health, trauma, consent, and more. So please be sure you're in a good spot to engage in these topics before continuing to listen. So, grab your fire gear, stoke the flames of curiosity, and let's embark on this crackling journey together. Welcome to Rain of Fire.
Hey, amazing firebugs. Welcome back to our podcast for Rain of Fire. We've missed you and we hope you're keeping warm. Today I have Collared Foxy, who is a wax play product maker, and they're a vendor for Rain of Fire, and I'm really excited to welcome them to my dungeon and to have them chat to us a little bit about wax and about kink and about all things that keep us warm. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, we're really excited. You have some amazing products. Your candles look absolutely awesome. But before we start talking about the drop, splat, and pouring of all of this, maybe you can tell my listeners a little bit about who you are and how you stopped being a muggle and entered the deep, dark world of BDSM.
Certainly. So my name is Eloquent and my sir is Notorious OG, and together we are Collared Foxy. So I entered the scene about 2.5 years ago, and Sir's been in for about 5 years now. And it was actually rope that made me sort of sit back and look. It was of all things, a scene in a book that made me go looking, and I found Fex, and as a result went to some munches and ended up in the Canberra scene originally, and Wagga scene, so living in rural Australia. And then we've just sort of evolved from there as to the kinks that we're into. I'm a submissive. I've got my sir, who is Notorious OG, and we've been into wax. He's been into wax for quite a long time. I fell in love with UV in particular, so I'm also an artist, and really fell in love with the aesthetics of wax on bodies. So that's how we got into that. I've used a lot of different candles, and then decided that I really wanted to create some candles that I could do really long pours on that would create some really beautiful art. Whereas my sir is very much into the I call it predicament wax, a little bit of sadistic side of wax. So he really enjoys that as well, whereas I enjoy the art side of it. So we've created a range of pouring pillars. So I wanted candles that I could stand up, and we've created a range of pouring pillars that are a soy and paraffin blend that will do really long pours and splashes. So you can let them pull for a while. I've measured the temperature and dropped the temperature on them so that they're about 46 to 48 degrees Celsius. And you can let them sit for a while and then do lovely big splashes in really vibrant colours. The other ones, which I'm really, really excited about, they're a little finicky to make, but they are our paraffin. They're pure paraffin, but normally paraffin will burn at sort of up to 62 degrees Celsius, which is far too hot. This particular type of wax, I've lowered the melting point on so that it melts sort of 48 to 50 degrees, and it retains its heat for a long time is the other thing with it. So we've got some pretty specific safety instructions around it, but you can use it as a dripping wax and it stays flexible for long periods of time and will create these stalactite type creations on the body. So I'm really excited about those ones. They're definitely my favorite candles to play with at the moment.
Oh, yay. And let's talk a little bit about wax and a little bit about safety that goes into wax. So you obviously play with it fairly frequently. What are some important things to remember with preparing your bottom and getting your bottom skin ready for wax? Because I think there are some considerations that come in here.
Absolutely. So one, obviously consent is so important, and taking having a full conversation about what areas are safe, what areas. So generally for first timers would tend to stay away from the more sensitive areas, body hair, any allergies. So a lot of wax products will contain soy. So making sure that, and some will contain almond oil, ours don't, but making sure that there's a conversation around allergies. Obviously, we're playing with open fire as well, so making sure that we have safety, so either fire blankets, a wet towel, something nearby as well. Preparing the skin. So I personally don't put any oils or anything on prior, because sometimes it can actually raise the temperature. But I have heard of people definitely using a mineral oil or a sweet almond oil or something, massage oil prior, or a massage candle. It depends on
I find it interesting about the putting an oil underneath. In my community, it's very popular that they use a vegetable oil. So after my lengthy experience with fire and all our discussions, the flash point of a vegetable oil is the highest compared to mineral oil. So if you're going to use something like that, a vegetable oil is a better bet. They recommend avocado oil, but I think you have to sell a kidney to buy avocado oil. Grapeseed oil is much more affordable, but also has a similar flash point. So those are the two oils that they recommend above everything else. I've had a very bad experience. We did a massive big pour and we got a crack underneath, and the skin had coconut oil on. And that coconut oil retained so much heat. The coconut oil was what blistered the skin quite badly. So from my side, I'm really not keen on it, but my community uses it quite a bit because the girl who does the wax here says it's easier to get the wax off the skin, especially on very hairy backs and stuff like that. But I also think she's not doing layers and layers and layers of pouring. My wax has always been this exploration of the extremes. So we've always sort of done 6 or 7 kilograms in a pour at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's always been massive. And I think when you're doing the bigger pour, you have to remember that the heat penetrates back down to the bottom layer. And if that bottom layer is something that retains heat really well, like an oil, that you're putting yourself at huge risk.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. See, a lot of the wax play I've come across here in my country doesn't tend to use an oil or something underneath. However, I haven't personally come across many problems with removal except in the lower temperature waxes because their melt point is very similar to body temp, or it's only slightly higher, about 42 degrees. They can be hard to get off and quite greasy. So I've heard of those ones being recommended, but certainly I find the paraffin based ones a little easier to get off. They tend to peel off a lot easier than the soy-based ones. But I think it's just personal preference as well. Yeah, when it comes to what's being used, what the purpose of it is as well.
Yeah, I found it really interesting about the allergies. That's something that I've never really considered. Possibly because I'm from Africa and I don't think our wax ever contains such nice things as almond and as almond oil or anything like that. But that soy, that people could actually have an allergy to soy is something that's never really entered my head. So I found that very valuable that you mentioned that, and it's definitely something I'm going to add to my wax consent card, because it would be a nut allergy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, oh no, not nuts. Well, almond would be nut, yes. That could definitely cause issues. I mean, even macadamia oil, as I said, I don't use any of those products, but they're often used as carriers in massage oils and in massage candles. But soy-based allergies, I mean, they're not common, but they certainly do exist.
Oh, that's so interesting. I definitely am adding that. That was very valuable to hear from you. Going to your coloring, how do you color your candles and what do you color your candles with?
So I use a skin-safe pigment, it's a skin-safe oil-soluble pigment. I do have to make them up in an oil first, but because of mine being paraffin soy, I tend to use a paraffin type oil that's medical grade. But they are designed for oil-based cosmetics, so they are skin safe. And then the wax I use is food and medical grade. So they're a little finicky sometimes, but they are beautiful, and they are beautiful on as well as in a solid candle as well as on the body.
Divine, we've really battled to make black. I don't know if you've had much success with making black wax.
Oh, I have. So it's funny you say that. I made a huge batch up before testing it properly when I first started making black candles, and it stained my bench. And I went, right, well, we aren't using those ones. So I've now found a safe, non-staining black colorant. But yes, I did have a bit of trouble with that to start with.
I'm having a giggle about I'm having a giggle about the staining, because we went through a process. My wax girl is very particular, and we went through a process, and she was just horrified because every time she tested it, it ended up being the gift that kept on giving and staying on the skin. So, and I think because black is needs absence of all light, the color has to be quite intense, and they're using a little bit more than you would of the normal colorants. And and every time we ask her to make black candles, she gives me this like look of death, and then she does it, but she gives me this whole breakdown of how there could possibly be some leftover and it could mark the skin. And in her defense, she's now got the recipe better, and we're not seeing any residue, but it doesn't mean that it couldn't happen. I think on very, very pale skin there might be some marks left. So just interesting to hear that it's an international problem and not just related to us in Africa.
It's definitely a problem, because red's a bit the same actually. I tried 4 or 5 different suppliers before I found the one that wouldn't cause issues. It's the one that's not transparent, not highly translucent, that sort of gave, particularly the paraffin, gave good enough color without leaving any residue, because I test everything on myself as well. So yeah, I ended up with black stripes down my arm there for a little while while I was doing this. I'm like, oh, that's not good. That's not going to work.
We did it in a big pour and we ended up with a half black human. So we feel you. But I mean, we have a group that we literally call ourselves for science. So everything we test on each other before we put it on the market or sell it or use it on random strangers. So the strangers are protected by our testing. What is your favorite thing to do with wax? What is a highlight for you of playing with it?
I just love creating art, and I'm actually going. starting to experiment with paintbrushes and syringes and different, using sort of the black and the darker colors with the UV highlights over top to create pictures. But I've got to admit, I do love huge paws too. Is definitely one of my favorite things to do. Unfortunately, at the moment, the only wax bottom I've got, because we do live quite rurally, and I only get across to events probably once a month. But my sir's back is the only thing I can play with at the moment, unless I do it on myself. So he has a whole lot more fun. But I like to make artwork. That's one of my favorite things to do.
I feel that we use a body safe paint, and then we paint a picture, and then we use the wax with syringes over it to create highlights, and then we use a little bit of the body paint over the wax again just to create the top highlights. We've had great fun with that. And it's quite a nice way of doing it, where by the time the wax has gone through the syringe and the heat has also calmed down a little bit, and you're only putting it in very small amounts onto the person, so you can use more paint if they're very novice, and then you do wax and just do a couple of wax lines so they get the idea of the play. We do that as tasters in at our markets. When we do markets, it's quite fun. And I definitely feel your love of the art. So I started like that, and we were very the art, it was sort of just creating pictures and little bits of art. But my favorite thing to do with the wax is feet. I don't know if you've ever done a paw over somebody's feet, but I highly recommend it. It's really super fun. And yeah, so just maybe another place to explore with Sir. And if they've got to keep their feet super still, which is really hard while the wax is splashing over them, because otherwise it cracks. So that's quite a fun way to explore with the wax, and lots of giggles. And yeah, if you put candles between their toes before the paw and let those candles burn while you're doing the paw, they have to stay extremely still. And just another way to make it more fun.
Oh, that sounds fabulous. We've not done it directly on my feet yet, because I'm super ticklish, so that might be quite interesting to do. However, I've certainly had the paws. I think the last one we did at a play event, sorry, a couple of weeks ago, was over my derriere and running down my hamstrings and splashing onto my calves because they were really long paws. And that was certainly a whole lot of fun. It's even more fun when you've got fishnets on, and then that creates pretty patterns when they get taken off. That's another fun thing that I quite like doing too, is that we call it predicament wax. I'm sure it's got a proper name, but that you holding a position, including bondage, and then having to stay there and have that wax stripped on you too. That's definitely one of my favorite things to do as a bottom.
Oh, I haven't thought of, I didn't quite give it a title, but predicament wax is actually a great name for it. That's super fun. I think wax is always predicament wax when we do it, just simply from the fact that when you're doing a paw, it's important that the person doesn't move.
Definitely.
So yeah, just making sure that they're still, because the only issues, like I said before, the only issues we've ever had is from people moving, and then the wax getting the new wax going underneath the old wax, which we found to be a problem.
Causing
just
issues.
Too much heat. Yeah, that's probably the only thing we've had as far as issues. Yeah. So what's coming up for Foxy, and what are you looking to do with your products? And what exciting things are you exploring at the moment?
Oh, I've got a fair bit on at the moment. I'm in the process of doing a whole bunch of paws of some of the ones that we've got advertised. So the paraffin drippers and the pourers, which are the soy paraffin ones, the pillars. I've had some requests for some interesting body parts, so that might be next too. And I really want to explore some pouring cups and some melts. So that really only works with one type of wax. So once I once I don't quite have as many kidlets running around over the school holidays, I'll be spending a bit more time trying to create some poras, I think, and some different. I've done a lot of stuff on color theory. I think I've got a writing there on color theory, so I'm going to try and create some different color blends as well that are harmonious. Because we've got a market coming up, Oz Kink Fest in October. So I'm hoping to get to that for our first market.
Oh, divine.
well.
What happens at a market?
This one is, look, I haven't been there beforehand because we live rurally, but this one it's huge. It's a massive lot of vendors all coming together for about a week-long kink celebration. There's the markets are one day, and they've got a whole bunch of different presentations and workshops and things like that for the whole week.
Yeah, divine.
This
This
is
is
in Melbourne,
absolutely
Victoria.
lovely.
Yeah, it'll be excellent. I meant to go last year, but we just couldn't get there. So this year we'll definitely be there.
Oh, divine. I hope that you guys have a good time and that it's a lot of fun and that your product gets well received. If people want to get hold of you and chat to you about your product, how can they reach out to you?
So we've got our website, so www.collaredfoxy.com. We are on FET too. It's collared-foxy, and or flick us an email. I haven't got my proper one set up yet, but it's just the collaredfox@gmail.com is our email, or chat on the Discord server as well for Rain of Fire, and I'm happy to have a chat to anyone about if they want to know anything about our products.
Awesome. And for people who are starting out in wax, do you have any recommendations for what products they should be looking at buying? What are great starter products?
Of ours, the Parasoy ones that I've got, which are our poras, and particularly I've got a rainbow stripe sampler of the UV, which is 8 colors in one, and there's a video on our Insta, so Collared Foxy, as well as on FET if you've got access to videos, which is me doing this massive rainbow love heart on Sir's back using that one candle. So it's really good. It's good because it's slightly lower melting point, so it's 46 to 48 degrees, but it also gives you a really cool idea of what all the different colors look like too. So that's my favorite starter product.
I saw that the candle looks absolutely divine. It's got, I think, pink and a darker pink and an orange and a yellow and a green and a blue and another pink at the top. It looks absolutely divine. It just looks like a party in a box.
It does, yeah. It's got all the colors of the rainbow, that one. So even the red UV, it does look a little pink under light, but it is red. And we've got purple as well on the end there, and a teal color. So all eight of the colors that we've got available in the UV. I do have some non-UV ones coming too, which I will do. Just again, got to get time to put those together. But yeah, the UVs are definitely my favorite. They're very pretty.
Do you have a specific UV light that you use when you do the wax? Where does somebody get something like that?
So I've just had a couple of torches and a little bar, like an LED bar light until now. I have just ordered a decent size, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but it's a large LED light from a specialist DJ shop in Melbourne for us, but that's what we're using now to be able to do it. Do the UV wax. I'm still working out how to take decent photos of it because it is quite hard to photograph, particularly using an iPhone. But yeah, we'll perfect that at some point too.
I am a photographer, and I have to tell you,
okay.
I had
You
a
might
big
have to...
smile. I had a big smile when you mentioned UV because it's always been the one thing with wax that I've veered away from substantially because it is so hard to photograph. And it really requires very decent settings, and it requires a great editor program afterwards. So definitely more complicated than you would first think when you start. And UV in my community seems to be the be all and end all of life. And I, as a photographer, it just ruins my evening because the wax is so beautiful, but it's so hard to photograph in the UV light. So yeah, and try a slow-mo video on your iPhone and then try taking screenshots from the slow-mo.
Thank you. That's really good advice, because I can't. I'm looking at the screen and I'm looking at the wax and I'm looking at the screen going, they're not the same color. I can't capture, particularly those blues. The blue, teal and purple are really vibrant, but the phone just doesn't pick it up.
Yeah, so try it on your if you've got an iPhone, try it on a slow-mo video and then just try taking screenshots from your video afterwards. It's about the best that I have found.
Awesome.
Super neat life hack. Follow me for more. Anything with fire is and an iPhone, a slow-mo video is fantastic, and you can screenshot them. You can screenshot them afterwards. How do you?
I wish I'd known that.
So my kink is medical. I'm a needle player, so everything is very pristine and clean and precise, and mess is not my friend. We did a wax pour for Rain of Fire, which is on the on-demand content, which everyone can have a look, and I did my friend's head. Which was great, and I loved every second of it until it was over and there was this huge mess on the floor. Do you have any top tips for getting the kink of the glitter of the kink world off the floor and off the furniture, and cleaning up mess? Is there anything that you found that works really well, or any top tips for prepping rooms for anal retentive tops like me?
Drop sheets are everybody's best friend. Although, in saying that, or old sheets. So we use plastic drop sheets, but obviously they're flammable as well. But they're portable for events. Canvas drop sheets work really well. And we just drop sheet the whole area, including the furniture, because it does splash everywhere. And it's not the easiest thing to get out of carpet. And even it's the other thing I tend to do is I tend to go around with a little mini handheld vacuum cleaner and the UV light, and just make sure that I have got most of everything afterwards. But yes, it is quite hard to clean up, unfortunately. Even off, most of the time it's okay off bodies, but the little flecks get everywhere.
Yeah, the bodies are okay because it's most of the wax temperature. It's sort of, well, if you go and pop the human in a shower, the wax will sort of melt off enough that it rids itself in hot water. So I found that okay. I'm having a laugh about the UV light and the vacuum cleaner. Because in our dungeon, our local dungeon is carpeted, and although we put the drop sheets down from one side to the other, and we tape the walls, and we do like the whole like Dexter room for wax just in case. When we finished and we're going around with the UV light still on, there's definitely glitter all over the floor from us, and it's definitely a lasting reminder that it doesn't matter how much you try, there's always one little corner that has the remembrance of the evening's play. And I'm grateful that the dungeon doesn't have a permanent UV light, so you can only see it when you put the UV light on. But I always have a big smile, because every now and again there's some white stain in that room that isn't from the wax, that is visible under the UV light, and then there's our wax stains, and I'm like, we were here, so were other people.
Yes, it's definitely difficult to clean up sometimes. I tend to go around with the little handheld Dyson and waving the light everywhere to try and make sure I pick up all the glitter. Glitter's a good term for it.
Yeah, it's literally the glitter of the kink world. It literally is. It literally is what. Yeah, and I think what's really funny is we had our Rain of Fire panel chat, And the one thing that the tops all sort of united in a voice with was the fact that glitter and fire just aren't great mixes. And I was like, that's okay, because we've replaced it with wax in Fireplay. We've made our own glitter so the brats at least can have some fun and enjoy it. Are there other kinks that you mix the wax with? Have you crossed those sort of boundaries and played a little bit with different kinks and wax?
Mainly sensory play with ice, and the UV body paint being that sort of hot cold type sensory play. We've done a little bit with rope as well, but again, mainly basic bondage ties in order to be able to hold the position to do more wax. It's something I've been looking into. Yeah, it is something I've been looking into. We don't tend to, like, we've done wax play after impact, and that's always an interesting experience as well. But yeah, it's something I want to get into a little bit more too. But finding resources and coming up with ideas is a little difficult sometimes about combining.
My riggers, who all are very riggery and very much for the love of rope in my area, aren't super keen about donating their beautiful rope to wax experiments. So we've had some pushback on let's rope and wax people. Just simply the riggers face their souls leave them, and they're not super keen to have their expensive ropes covered in wax. But we've done a little bit with some boating rope. I think from my experience, we've done quite a lot of castings. We did a full mummification, and then we did a wax pour over that, and then recently I've done the headpiece. And I think what's quite interesting is if you use wax over another medium, is how much the medium underneath shrinks when the wax cools. So how much of a cast it actually makes. So when we did the mummification, we padded the cast quite a bit. So we used a cling wrap first, and then we used a very soft bandage. It's used underneath horse exercise bandages. It's like a gamgee, so that there was a bit of give. And then we did a normal bandage, and then we put 17 kilograms of wax on the body, and then but what was really interesting was how much it shrunk the whole casing down, and it really entombed my partner's very tiny. So it really entombed him. He was like a little midget in a sarcophagus on the table. It was super fun. We obviously didn't do the whole, we only did the top piece, so there was gap underneath, and he was still able to have air, and we watched the temperature, and we were quite careful about those specifics, and it was a team doing it, so it wasn't done without safety precautions. There's obviously huge safety precautions for anybody listening. If you're going to mummify somebody, it's really important to keep a watch on body temperature, and to have good ventilation, and to have a quick exit for the human being if you need to. But the wax definitely substantially shrank on cooling, and everything tightened. And then this last one that I did with a pour over the head, that was super interesting because it's an experienced wax player. We left a gap at the back of the bandage specifically so that we didn't encase the entire head, and there was a bit of a gap to allow for the shrinkage. But it was so incredible to see the amount that it shrank around her head, and how much space was the space was constricted by the wax when it had fully cooled. It was something that was really interesting to make note of.
Oh wow, that sounds fantastic. I never actually thought I've seen the wax head pour. Definitely, that's I think that was actually the reason I reached out at one point, and followed. So I went, oh wow, that's fantastic. But no, I've not thought of doing a full body. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it was look, it was a very expensive, you know what wax costs. It was a very expensive
Yep.
exercise. It was a very expensive exercise. So I'm not sure we will repeat it again in a hurry.
Mm.
But yeah, I think I was a bit disappointed. The colors, the red didn't come out as red as I wanted it to. I wanted it came out a bit pink. So
Mhm.
the my changes on that paw would have been to probably put a little bit more coloring in and to make the wax, because it's not going directly onto the skin, it's going onto a bandage or something like that. So there's less considerations about the color. So I would have made the color a bit stronger because I
Mhm.
really wanted it to look like a bloody mess, and it didn't. It looked very pretty and pink and blue and and he looked like a bit like a rainbow mummy instead of like a gory mummy. So that I would change if I was doing it again, just to put some mica powder or something into the wax that we were using. And I think
Mhm.
because it's not directly on the skin, you're able to do a little bit more of a paraffin pour with that than you would do if you were doing it directly onto a body. So you're able
Mhm.
to use a slightly a wax that goes slightly harder, which I think is more convenient in that situation. The wax took a long time to set. So I would have
Yeah.
preferred it to set a bit quicker. So I would have would have been my changes for that. But
Mm.
yeah, it was super fun to see. The head paw thing, highly recommended. Highly recommended. We really had an absolute blast. There was when it was running down her face, she was just in fits of giggles. It was very interesting to do, and I think it's one of those things that I've seen on Instagram and on Etsy and on all of those um pages where they have the three candles on the woman's head and the wax running down her face. I've seen that for the last 10 years. So it was definitely like a bucket list item to reproduce.
Yes.
And it, but again, because the wax we used was the UV wax, the colors were really pretty and soft and gentle and cupcakey. I would have preferred them to be a bit harder and a bit more dramatic to photograph
Yes.
it. But yeah, that's just because that's the wax that's available, so that's what we had at the moment. But yeah, I would have preferred it to be a bit more dramatic and the colors to be a bit brighter. But that's just the photographer in me wanting to wanting to make a statement.
To get a bit more vibrance out in it. Yes.
Yeah, and again, like at the same problem that you are talking about when we came to actually photographing it with a real camera under the UV is almost impossible. So
Yes.
we were able to get some good shots of the video, and we were able to take video of it, but not with the UV on to the quality that we wanted to. That UV light
Mm.
skews the camera light and doesn't give you the best finish. So yeah, so same problems, different countries, same problems, I think. And then
Definitely.
I have to tell you, I hadn't done wax for about 5 years. I think it's my first big pour in ages. And
Wow.
I had forgotten the mess. So
Oh.
I felt quite resentful to the wax afterwards. My dungeon is normally a medical space and it's normally super neat and tidy, and just looking at the mess afterwards was a lot for me to deal with. So I need to find a better way. But when we were talking now about drop sheets, I was thinking maybe a shower curtain would actually be a nice easy way to have something that's movable. I find that the plastic drop sheets, when you pick them up,
Oh.
they're not so easy to get up off the floor in one smooth movement, so all the pieces fly off them. And I think maybe a bit of plastic that's not quite as brittle would be better.
Mm. Or old cotton sheets, or like
Yeah,
cheap
and then
cotton sheets is
then
another
what do
one
you
I've come
do?
across too.
What do you do with the cotton sheet afterwards? Shake it out somewhere where you don't live. It's somebody else's venue.
Well, I suppose I keep forgetting people. Yeah, I live near like on a farm, so there's plenty of places where you could shake off some wax. But yes, I suppose maybe you're right. You'd have to sort of put it in a bin and shake it off, and yeah, that would be difficult. That would be difficult.
Yeah,
But I don't. I just like I've got a black sheet I use, black cotton sheet that I use as well. So that's, but that's again we just sort of reuse that for ourselves only, and it's usually with the paraffin wax, which is a little easier because of the way it sticks together. It doesn't flake. So it's a lot easier to clean up anyway, but just shake it off into the bin and off you go.
Okay.
Pretty much. You've got to be careful not to put it on the carpet again too much and put the glitter everywhere.
I don't even have carpets in my house. I'm that pedantic. Everything is hardwood floors or tiles, and they're very easy to to disinfect and to clean. So
Yes.
I think I just got grumpy in my old age. But I'm really excited to have your products on board, and I love your rainbow candle. It's absolutely beautiful, and I hope that everybody goes to have a look. And you have some really good info on your FetLife site, so if people are wanting more, they must go on there and have a look. I'll pop all your links in the bio for this so that people have some more information, and you're really easy to chat to. So if anybody wants any info, please reach out to this amazing human and chat to them about their wax. Yeah, and then if you do use their products, please tag them and Rain of Fire so we can have a look and see, share your beautiful art and what you're doing with the wax. We'd love to see more wax in our feeds. I think that's, as long as it's not in from my kitchen or my house, I would be appreciative of that too.
That would be fantastic. I will be putting some more info up on the website too. So the started off with the FetLife with the information on there, and then I'll pop that into our webpage too. So that's still fairly new. But absolutely, would love some tags. That would be fantastic. I love seeing people's artwork with the candles that we make. The rainbow ones, as you said, are particularly cool because they actually, you get these really fantastic multicolored droplets and layers, even within single drops because of the way that the candles burn. So yeah, definitely one of my favorite things to look at is other people's artwork with our candles.
Yeah, 100%. And I hope we see a lot of it. It definitely brightens up the feed, and also gives me some pleasure to know that somebody else had to clean up the mess.
Yes.
Not my mess. That's great. And the Collared Foxy will have a vendor site on our Discord. So if you have a ticket for Rain of Fire, you can connect with them there, or you can connect with them on FetLife. If you don't have a Rain of Fire ticket, I don't know what you're doing with your lives, people. We have some incredible stuff on our on-demand channel. We have a whole bunch of stuff on wax. We have a whole bunch of stuff on fire. We have a whole bunch of stuff on consent and negotiations. We've got over 30 videos now, I think. Some really great stuff. So get your ticket, have a look at the on-demand stuff. You've got 2 weeks to go before the festival. And then we have our panel discussions coming up next week for our bottoms and for our BIPOC panel. If you've got some questions that you want to pop into the panel chat, you can either send us an email or get hold of us on our anonymous question page. And you can ask whatever questions are coming to mind so that our educated bottoms or BIPOC panelists can answer them for you. And yeah, if you need a scholarship for the event, we still have BIPOC scholarships and low income scholarships available. We don't need a reason, just send us a DM. We believe education should be available to everybody. And we hope you are staying warm and staying lit. And from my dungeon in Cape Town, South Africa, lots of love and kitten kisses.